state trying to drive here to the east. That was a mistake.
Yeah. Hour from Virginia or so.
It took forever between the Waback Bridge, which had to go through multiple cycles on that road. And then here, I got to see more of the town than I've ever seen. That was fun. Yeah.
And the lines are long enough, you can't get around the slow movers after.
Yeah.
In either direction.
Yeah.
Alrighty, it's 5:30, so I'll call the regular city of Whitfield council meeting for Tuesday, May 27th, 2025 at 5:30 to order. Roll call please.
There's Scott.
Here.
Counselors Grant,
Here.
Darla. Here. Etna. And Matheson.
Here.
And Corin.
Alright, thank you. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to the consent agenda. Read through that. Any questions or comments? Alrighty, hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to accept the consent agenda as is.
So
We have a motion from Councilor Jarvala. Anybody that would like to second or support that?
I'll support.
We have a support from Councilor Grant. All those in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Moving on to the guests and citizens forum. Is there anybody that'd like to stand up and say anything? Any questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to reports from staff, city administrator, library, anything from them?
I don't have very little for this meeting, being a monster, thank you for that, but, we'll get into what we're gonna talk about later for, the water board. For the Blue Grant, that's gonna be coming up, we're gonna talk about that, they have a media event June 26th, I believe it is, so we're looking for help, organize that. Yeah, really, that's all I have for this meeting. Let's hear anybody have any questions.
All right, thank you. Moving on to library director Lanning.
Our summer program theme this year is Level Up at Your Library, and the summer program kickoff is June 2nd from 1 to 3. And we'll be in the library yard. We will have an obstacle course and life-size Frogger, Angry Birds, and Save Princess Peach games, plus a Mario Kart scavenger hunt and a craft for the kids to do. In June, we will also have Brodini Comedy Magic Show on June 9th at 1 o'clock. Mario Bingo, June 12th at 2:30. Story time at the gazebo with a hula hoop competition on June 25th at 12:30. And a putter's picnic for the summer at the golf course on June 30th at 12 o'clock. Jenna at the golf course will be hosting the picnic. And then we'll learn about putting and golf in general. And finally, I'm excited to report that the White Lakes Library was chosen to receive 100 children's books from the Brownstone Book Fund, which is a private nonprofit located in New York City via the Arrowhead Library System. And the books, when we receive them, we can add them to our collection, or we can give them away as we see fit.
All right, thank you. Sounds like a busy summer, lots of activities for the kiddos. Thank you for that. Moving on to public utilities director Barron.
All right, we'll start off with the obvious. Construction started, so please be mindful of the construction crews out there, try and stay off the roads that they're working. As far as the water plant goes, we made progress on our manganese byproduct issue, so water should be returning to normal. And with the fire danger going down, we're gonna look at flushing hydrants here in the next couple of weeks. But I'll talk with the guys, see what works for them, and I'll get an ad out in the paper for that. And Josh is gonna be hauling sludge coming up here doing for the wastewater side, so that's all I got.
All right, thank you. Moving on to city attorney Lewicki, anything from you?
Thanks, Mayor. I don't have anything at this time.
All right, thank you. Moving on to reports from elected officials, Counselor Grams.
It's the voice privacy content.
Someone said something. I attended the joint powers meeting and then the housing meeting after it today. And I mentioned earlier that there are some steps the city can take to be ready for housing. So hopefully we can talk about different zoning ordinances and having land available. Some of it might be to give land away and have it ready to build on, and some might be selling for a discount. But there are some developers interested in the area, so I'll keep up to date on those meetings. That's about it for tonight.
Thank you, Counselor Gerbla.
All right, the planning commission meeting for last week was canceled, didn't have to attend that. I was at the joint powers board with Sherry this morning. A couple of speakers were there, Miriam Carroll from Yellow Range spoke online and covered the pickleball upcoming tournaments were canceled till later this summer. Forest Service was there, spoke about the Jenkins Creek fire being 80% contained. He covered Firewise info, which goes through what you can do to prevent fire from coming into your property. IRRB also spoke on redirecting the channel from the flood damage done out by Giants Ridge. And Sean Heaney from North Bend was there, talked about housing again on the range, which we covered a little bit ago. Also, the marketing videos for the area will be available soon, and he mentioned again the software to link community events to the Discover the Rain software. And there's a East Range Summit next week at Giants Ridge. I think Sherry, you said you had the flyers for that at the meeting this morning.
Yeah, I sent them out to a group of our joint powers contacts, and then I believe they were gonna send it out on a mass mailing,
Okay,
tomorrow. I can make sure all the counselors are included on that email chain, I don't know. Some of them
I think we
do.
got one on our joint powers.
Yeah, it's in the packet,
It's in
yeah,
that-
and then there's.
that packet.
Is there a deadline to register? That I can see,
I don't think it set a deadline.
but you have to log in to register.
I think so.
Yeah, there was a link to register and it is on the second, so. Yeah, so I would register, before Friday probably, if you're interested. It is open to the public and anyone to attend, so.
John also said it's time to get a good lunch up there at the ridge too, so. Then they covered a little bit on the water project, said the intake was being poured, and the intake piping being installed at the lake out there. The Aurora City Administrator was announced as leaving and going to the private sector. I understand he's going to Bolton and Mink. So you guys stole him away. They're also working on filling their counselor position from Dan Goldie passing away. And the city of Wauk mentioned about the new fire truck they ordered and the railroad bridge being worked on. Their sidewalks are going to be repaired this summer and they're doing music in the park festival. That's about all I had.
All right, sounds good, thank you. Counselor Ekman, anything from you?
I just wanna thank like our firefighters and our police and everybody that was involved with the fire. I think they did a pretty awesome job, even having our retirees coming out and updating people. I thought it was great.
I'll second that. Those guys did a wonderful job out there in the fires.
That's it.
Moving on to Counselor Matheson.
Yeah, just, after our emergency meeting about the fire, what was that now, weeks ago, whatever that was. I got to ride, me and you and, a couple guys from the fire department rode out to actually take a look at right out there and see what was going on, and it's crazy all the damage that was done out there. One thing that they're still talking about, and I wanna make sure to emphasize, is the Forest Service still has most of that closed off, so. For the citizens that wanna get out and see or get out and about, try to stay out of the area, they're still out there chipping, they're still out there doing a bunch of stuff, so. I know people probably wanna go take a look and see what it looks like, but let's just stay out of there until they give the okay. Forest Service will open it back up when they feel it's ready to go out there, so. Other than that, nothing else for me.
All right, thank you for that, and then for me, yeah, with Counselor Ekman, just thanking all of our emergency responders, police department, fire department, EMS, they were very busy the past handful of weeks, just making sure everyone was staying, safe and that if you or the fire wasn't progressing towards the city, and then all the over to city firefighters that came into the area to help out with that. From my understanding, we're no longer in that set category, looks like the county taking us off of any sort of ready, set, go off. If you look at their map, we're no longer on that. I had went up to their briefings on last Friday and then Sunday as a part of the ambulance. In the Jenkins Creek fire, the majority of that is contained. And then talking with, Fire Chief House, there isn't really any significant concerns with, the fire and us and progressing towards, Pet Lakes anymore, so. Thankfully, we have some pretty experienced and hardworking, people in town, that took care of everything, and it could have been a lot worse, and thankfully it wasn't. So again, thank you for everyone that helped out with making sure that people are staying safe. Now, on my end, next Saturday, I believe, so June 7th, the Ranger Snowmobile ATV Club, is having their grand opening, for their multi-use, trail. I think they put something in the shopper, I believe, I think I saw it in there. If anybody has any sort of questions regarding that, feel free to reach out to me. And then obviously anybody on the Ranger Snowmobile ATV Club, so Roy, Beauregard, Bob, for those folks, so. I'm sure there's stuff on our website and Facebook page, so, I will plan on being there next Saturday, June 7th. And that's all I've got. We have no old business, so moving on to new business. 11.1, pay request number 8 from Max Grade Construction in the amount of $557,313.51 for the White Lakes Wellness and Recreation Center. Also that is known as the Arena Project. So just looking through the packet, just the further construction stuff that they're doing inside the arena. Anything on your end or?
Percentage wise, I can't remember what percentage complete, but I think it's over 40 now. The floor is poured, it's still covered with plastic until Thursday. I think Thursday or Friday, we'll take the plastic off and then there's a 7-day dry cure. After the 7-day dry cure, then we can pretty much go business as usual. It's on the floors if you're ready to or anything. Machinery room is nearly, most of the equipment is set, they wind up the door and then started blocking the door into the old Zamboni. So, yeah, progress is going very well there. It's a little fast, it's actually going very much work to done,
Right.
since I started. Yeah, and then the blacktop will come next, that'll be in conjunction with the work up here, so. That parking lot will come out once this road is done, and then
How far back are they from the road?
for the blacktop.
Yeah,
I believe it's the whole parking lot starting at the doors.
even that gravel portion?
No,
That's in the
I don't believe the gravel portion is included in this. But let me double check and make sure on that. I think it's the existing blacktop.
Just see, okay.
Yeah, and I'm still working through all the grant funding and stuff for reimbursement for the projects. We're about halfway spent on this project already. We're getting near it.
Alrighty, any other questions or comments regarding the arena project? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve that pay request number 8 from Max Grade Construction in the amount that I previously stated for that arena project.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion from Councilor Grant, second from Councilor Jarla. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Moving on to 11.2 regarding the citywide cleanup. So we'll be doing the citywide cleanup that we do annually. This year we'll be doing it from Monday to Wednesday, June 9th to the 11th. Public notice will be advertised in the East Range Times, on the arena sign, the city Facebook page, and then the city website on June 2025. And then in the advertisements, it lists things you can and can't, put out on your curb. So if you have further questions regarding that, just look at that public notice. I would think that we put it on the board outside, the city offices. Also, if there's further questions that you have after reading through, the advertisements and public notice, you can always reach out to, the Public Works Department or City Hall here or me or any of the counselors too, and we can always get an answer if you, have a question. So this is more so just, informational. So we won't have to have any sort of, motions for that. Moving on to 11.3, resolution 2025-012, accepting donation from the Lafayette Lakes Chamber of Commerce for the library, recreation department, and the Lafayette Lakes Senior Center. So this resolution will be to accept $10,250, from the Chamber of Commerce, with the following, disbursements: $2,000 to the Senior Center, $7,500 to the City of Lafayette Lakes Recreation Department, and then $750 to the library. Anybody have any sort of questions or comments regarding that? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to, accept this resolution and then, allowing, City Administrator Wyberg and myself to sign that, and then we'll put that into, we'll ask for a motion for that. So we have a motion from Councilor Jarvis. Anybody that would like to second or support that?
I'll second.
We have a second from Councilor Matheson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Moving on to 11.4, discussion to hire a playground attendant position. So previously Mark Hurt, new sports director, had came in and spoken to us, about a handful of different things. One of those things being, the lifeguards and then the playground attendant. So per this, his recommendation is to hire a playground attendant to work with the lifeguard at the beach. This position will be CPR and first aid certified and will assist the lifeguard in non-water related emergencies. They'll not be allowed to enter the water. Mark had relayed that 2 other entities had approved him hiring for this position. Do you have anything to add from you?
Well, what, he came and spoke to him, council at that time, and, it's just not gonna have any concert thing, it's just, man, because of due to the shortage of lifeguards, I figured we're moving towards that in this position versus having 2 lifeguards on duty.
I think from
We're
when
just asking for council's approval.
and talking to him, it sounded like it was the town of White, so the Twin Lakes.
The next beach, and,
And then by Lubbock. So those, that's, I think that's what he had said, the other 2 entities, so the city of Lubbock, and it sounded like they don't create it, and then the town of White, but create it too. And then the Florida doesn't, because they don't have a beach. So I think those are the only 2 other, entities that Mark works with for the beach side of things. And then the park, and I think every one of those places does have a beach and then a park. Is there any sorts of questions or comments regarding, the playground attendant position? Sound like we've already given the okay for the lifeguards, so you're just wondering about, the playground attendant position.
Do we know how many lifeguards they have or need or?
No, I didn't speak to him on this one in particular, but, he just called in when we chose, I thought he'd be here to speak to it. He's not.
I don't know, just as a,
Yeah,
I mean, I was a lifeguard as a
I
kid.
can't remember what he said at that meeting, we had.
I think it was accepting applications from students through the end of the school year, so all the applications should have to be turned in this week, I would think.
Any other discussion, regarding the playground attendance? I guess my thoughts, if they don't have enough lifeguards, and we have two other, or the city and then a town already approving it. I guess it wouldn't hurt to okay it, since these others have already okayed it. And then with not having enough lifeguards, I think it just adds another extra layer of safety and supervision at the beach and park area, just in case if something bad happens, there's another set of hands or pair of eyes to keep an eye on things.
But you would give lifeguards more preference over a playground attendant, I would hope, like, in hiring wise, like I would go and hire 3 lifeguards and 6 playground attendants if they didn't apply.
Right.
Just for safety, I mean, I was a lifeguard, and sometimes you do need 2 lifeguards to jump in after a kid.
Right,
I think when he was here, it seemed like the biggest thing that he was talking about was the fact that he didn't think that they were gonna be able to staff 2 all the time because of numbers, and that's why he wanted an extra person just there. I'm assuming if he, the way I at least took it was that if he gets enough and has 2 lifeguards, then he's gonna have 2 lifeguards. But I think that's what he was talking about, that's how I took it.
Yeah, just so there wasn't one lifeguard alone
Right,
at
there's
each all
no
day, so at least they could then put this
That's somebody.
park attendant with that lifeguard, so there were 2 people on duty, so one teenager wasn't there alone to
It's crazy to me, man.
man all the adults that come to the beach.
Best job.
yeah, sitting on the beach, yeah, doesn't sound like too bad.
No, best job.
And yeah, since it'll be a new thing, we can see how it goes and then Mark can always report back to us. I guess on my end, I'd rather have, like I said, an extra pair of eyes to where, they don't have enough lifeguards, there's just something you can fall back on to just for that supervision and safety piece. Any other discussion or questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve, Mark to hire this playground attendant, to work, with the lifeguard at the beach / park area.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion from Counselor Mattson. Anybody that'd like to second or support that?
I'll support that.
We have a second / support from Counselor Grams. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Moving on to 11.5, update on the East Range Water Project. So both of the Jakes, our Jake and Bolton and Minks Jake, can provide a update on the water project and then engineering work that they need to start to meet that March deadline.
Yeah, so we're basically at the next step where we need to start getting the approval for the engineering and design. That'd be running the pipe between Aurora and White Lakes, and then looking at the hydraulics of it all. Do we need to make changes in our system currently to make sure the water transfers right? Because as you know, that tower up in Laskin is only 150,000 gallons, whereas our main storage is a standpipe at 1.5 million gallons roughly. So to do that, we're gonna have to look at a $1.7 million loan, and I asked Jake to be here to kind of explain what that's gonna provide for the city if we decide to do that. And Gage, if you guys have other questions, I need to get answered. Because this is a big step. Once we take this step, as Dean has said in our conversations, we're committed. We're in. So I see a future with our current water plant, upgrades, be it safety, deterioration, and other things. Our chemical room doesn't have proper containment in it right now. We got OSHA inspection, we'd be probably looking at being forced to make some changes there. The fire brought up a good point, and you know, we don't have a place to hook up an emergency generator if power gets cut to that water plant. We'd have to look at getting an electrician in there and see what upgrades we need for that. And then treatments evolving, as they're finding these new standards, people hear about PFAS and they're starting to look more seriously at manganese and stuff like that. Manganese is a big component we're treating, and PFAS has been detected in the Colby Lake. So that's something we may have to look at treatment for in the future, should we stay with this facility. But
And PFAS is your forever chemicals.
yeah, it's a man-made forever chemical, it's anything stain resistant, anything like firefighting foams. nonstick cookware, stuff like that. Even the spray you put on your jackets to repel the rain. So it's found just about everywhere, and there's a million different compounds they've detected. They've narrowed down to, I think, about 16 they're looking at right now. But, yeah. Did you wanna jump in?
Those chemicals are not found in Aurora State Line, right? The PFAS, the lead and the sulfate.
Correct, nothing's been detected as of today, so.
Is that everything from you?
That's pretty much my spiel on it. Jake, do you wanna?
So I think kind of like Jake was saying, so where things are at is as the East Range Water Board expansion team's been meeting, between the cities of Aurora, Town of Whites, City of White Lakes. So we kind of worked all the way through what sort of, questions might have come up from the initial discussion with White Lakes. To also what a figurative JPA would look like. Our team is putting together like a bullet point summary of just kind of what those discussions had, such as like, what does rate structure look like? What is, ownership on board to all these different sort of ramifications. But fundamentally, like Jake says, is over the next couple of months, there would just be a need to start the design process to get into the funding cycles based on some of those conversations we had in the past where March of 2026 would be a big milestone to get funding applications in for whatever path you guys choose to go forward, whether that's gonna be, joining with the East Range Water Board versus a new treatment facility. You guys would wanna get in on 2026 for those, any sort of improvement. And so we would be looking at starting engineering. I talked with Brian Golden today. We could look at starting in July as an option for what it would take to expand the East Range Water Board's current system. That would be expanding the water plant. And then like Jake said, designing a transmission line with a PRB and a booster station that would carry water from the east edge of Aurora all the way up to the water plant here in White Lakes. So that 1.7 million, what it constitutes is really it's the expansion or design costs for expanding the East Range Water Board's current system. While that system has been designed and engineered, it was designed and engineered for Aurora and Town of White. It's expandable though, and those design considerations are in place. However, there's still engineering to be had on designing the chlorine tanks, all the different infrastructure that's there. It also includes all the architectural, foundation, structural, geotechnical evaluations that would have to happen for that location, and the geotechnical and survey work that would be done to carry the water main from Aurora all the way to White Lakes. It's approximately 4 miles of water main that would be established. So we do borings all along 110 and we would survey all along 110. Other things that would be included in that 1.7 estimate is the electrical design, mechanical and plumbing, site design, any sort of meetings, 60 and 90% plan reviews with the city of White Lakes and staff. We would also have all the permitting, so that would be completing wetland delineations, any sort of threatened or endangered species, along with your cultural resources. All those permit steps would be taken as part of that 1.7 million. Then also the last bit would be contract administration, which is preparing the project for bid and getting it to a point where we can submit for funding sources. So we do include all the funding applications to PFA, rural water, for those sort of like the IUP and PPL applications, similar to how we've done in the past year. So.
Anybody have any sort of questions for either of the Jakes? Any comments? I know Councilor Gravel has been attending meetings and is pretty up to date on all the information and yeah, is there anything that you wanna add?
What, on top of what these guys have said, and it's been mentioned already, we're looking at either doing a plant on our own here or tying into the one in Aurora. And something that was covered before was that a good portion of that plant in Aurora has what they call, I guess, public use areas, the bathrooms, the office spaces and everything else. We're not going to have to pay over again for that like we would here. If this was done, we'd be on the same product that we've got now. As Jake said with the PFAS, I asked him a while back, we got that old dump out on 665. that is a potential source for contamination into our water system because of the proximity to the streams and rivers out there. Is that where it's coming from? I don't know. You know, but it's a potential source, whereas we're looking at a much better water quality source coming from Aurora. And it's a whole lot easier. You yourself told me that the city of Cook was turned on their plant.
I think so, yeah.
To go with regionalization, where we're tied with several other communities. The governmental entities that provide the grants and the funding look at that in a much better light than you do an individual city and looking for funding.
Yeah, most of the residents I've talked to about water and hooking up with Aurora, I would say the vast majority of residents are in favor of hooking up with Aurora. The main gripe that they have is obviously water quality, nothing against Jake, he's doing his best with what he, like he had mentioned, all the PFAS and the chemicals in Kobe, so he's trying the best that he can, even with putting, you know, the big chunk of money is putting all the money into chemicals and treating the water and all these other sorts of things. And at some point with the aging kind of infrastructure we have now, we're gonna have to look at redoing the water plant if we stay with that, which will cost money. But then we also hook up to Aurora, that also costs money, but we get a better quality of water and a better source. But if we stay with this current water plant and still continue playing on cold.
We're not doing it yet.
Right, so it would just be raising rates and still getting that poor quality water. Or we can look at raising rates, obviously, because we have to hook up with Aurora and that costs money, but then we'd be getting that better quality of water. And I think that's the main gripe that residents have, is that you raise the rates, yet we still have this poor quality of water. And hooking up with Aurora just makes the most sense in my opinion. And then obviously the professionals that we've talked to, including Jake and Jay, just makes the most sense that we hook up with Aurora, especially with the funding piece of it. That regionalization aspect is very important to these different folks that are providing funds to different cities. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. Anybody else have any sort of questions or points to discuss?
So the 1.7 million buys you into the seat on the board, right?
Yeah,
And
and that, right now, Jake and I are ex officio members of the board, we're non-voting members. Once we agree that we are voting members on the water board. And the makeup of the board will probably change at a later date, once they get everything up and running, so where it's only one entity from each individual city. The city of Wawabek may be coming in the future, unknown right now, but if and when they do, that will help the cost sharing on everything also.
Because in a similar way to where you guys buy in the existing portion of the facility, Biwabik would also have a buy-in, so ultimately you guys would return check for a portion of the project.
so the other thing with 1.7 million is now the way you made a decision, then you're gonna decommission the water plant at some point in the future, and you're gonna get your water. So.
Yeah. And Luke had talked about working in grants in the future for decommissioning our water plant and Aurora's also for the tear down and everything. And being able to all are part of that on grant money.
That would also include potential for meters as well, so where you guys do not have meters out of pocket either, so.
And outside of grants, money for the city, so. Will be for, 12 million.
Correct.
So the city is still getting about 12 million of the project.
So the other details too is, so the 1.7 is an estimate percent on design, so we are preparing an actual scope and fee. That is not to exceed, that we'll be presenting to you guys as well. But for just moving the ball along, the 1.7 is a good estimate that's been, from standard practice to utilize for these applications. Just to make sure you have extra in case you do run into something down the road or design changes. I had met with Shannon Sweeney last week, who is with David Brown Associates. And so they work with Minnesota Rural Water to facilitate these interim loans. So he did call me and ask some questions about that and provide some numbers. I'm still working with him on providing some additional numbers so that he can do some of these affordability evaluations on White Lakes. So I did talk with him probably 3 hours ago, and that's what he's still working through. so.
Then I'll be speaking with him tomorrow as well. That, so.
Questions for either of the Jakes or any comments? So I guess what tonight are you looking for, Jake, on our end, just?
Sure, I think what we need is to kind of, is taking that step to look into acquiring the interim loan through rural water. So you could let Shannon Sweeney move forward with proceeding with the 1.7. And like I said, we'll be fine tuning an estimate, and what we'd like to do is bring that back to you guys in about 2 weeks. At your next council meeting, and we apologize, we're a little behind on this, we would have liked to had it ahead of time. But at least getting Shannon working on the loan application just keeps things moving along. And ultimately, you guys feel free to take the month of June to make a decision on that scope and fee letter. Even if we got to go ahead in July, that's still adequate time to complete the design. For both breakdowns of the project before March 26th of March of 2026.
Personally, I'd like to see the city go ahead on a resolution to get it started, rather than continuing to wait. That's my opinion, for what it's worth.
So I think tonight, just looking for, a motion to give Shannon Sweeney to go ahead to continue with looking at the funding piece of that.
For 1.7.
Yeah, and then obviously we can.
Once you have
When
the
he's done with
numbers,
that, and then we can
once you have the numbers, then kind of CDS can have a decision on a path forward, right? Correct.
So it sounds like a plan, so I'll take a motion to.
So moved.
Provide.
There it is.
For, city administrator, library to reach out to Shannon Sweeney just to give them the go ahead to look at, kind of those funding sources and then come to us at future council meeting to provide those numbers, and at that point we can move ahead with that. So. A little bit different than how it was written. So yeah, looking for a motion for just, giving Shannon Sweeney to go ahead to figure out his number stuff.
Dave, you did that.
Ben,
Right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. And that's all we've got for the
I have-
agenda.
one thing for new business. Based on what you said earlier about the fire basically being no longer a threat. And we need to keep that emergency management order in place, or can we make a resolution to disband?
So on that, I was thinking either doing a special council meeting if we had to do it earlier, or just doing it at the next council meeting. With that, there are some funding things that we could potentially get with that.
When the county declares a county emergency, when,
Yeah, this is a city emergency.
this is
We have
city
special
emergency.
needs.
Yeah, that's step one. I don't know, yeah, I don't.
Do we still have to have that in order to qualify for any potential funding from anybody for anything?
I can't answer that, I don't think so, but is that resolution will also just to give a green light there for us to do emergency services?
Yeah.
And spend money if we have to, bring in bills or whatever we have to protect the town. I believe it does.
We would need that on the agenda to be able to make a motion.
Yeah,
correct?
so I'll say two things about that.
Yeah.
One, you can add it to the next agenda to rescind the emergency powers, but it does allow you access to funding that's available for local emergencies. And if that is available, then I would recommend leaving it in place at this time and until the fire, I mean, they're still fighting it actively now. If something were to flare up or create more of a problem than you're anticipating, that wouldn't be a bad idea to have that in place, just because of what it affords the city in terms of reaction time if necessary.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll look at adding that to, the next agenda, so that we, this meeting, we can, but everyone's been pretty good with, the emergency stuff, I've been going crazy with the extra things that I'm able to do, so. Yeah, almost. But yeah, we'll make sure to include that in the next, agenda, and then, yeah, we can look more into the funding piece of it too, where there's, but thankfully I haven't come into the city or didn't. So I don't think there would be much that we could, but maybe with the fire department and ambulance, going to, the fires, might be something in there, so. We'll look a little bit more into that, but with that, that's the end of the meeting, so I'll ask for a motion for adjournment.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion from Councilor Graham, is there anybody that would like a second support? We have a second from Councilor Jarla, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you.
These 14 wants to end, so they're done.
Yeah, well. Let's have that extra.
There's just a lot.
Who's the new guy?
Yeah.